Right, guys, here's another video. Hello, everybody. Hello, Saitlanders. How are you? Another video on pension funds, which is a source of grave concern. And this article is in Business Tech, which is a good website, good media outlet. And the article is entitled, "Beware Misinformation Around South Africa's Pension Pot, Magnus Haystack." It's not by Magnus Haystack, it's reporting on Magnus Haystack saying, "Beware misinformation around South Africa's pension pot." While many look for bright spots in the economy and local markets, investors need to face up to the bleak reality in South Africa and government's incoherent plans around pensions, writes Magnus Haystack, director of Brenthurst Wealth Management. The returns on the JSE over the past 5, 7, and 3 years have been abysmal. Probably the worst period in investment markets since the 1985 crisis after the infamous Rubicon speech by P.W. Botha, former president of South Africa. But then we had international sanctions, a financial rand, you remember the financial rand, and global sanctions, and a low-intensity civil war in our townships. Today there is none of that. Why then is the JSE performing so poorly? But is it doing poorly? Worse than you think. Much worse. The following numbers you have never seen before, especially not from any one of the large investment houses in South Africa. They churn out a lot of information all the time, but never the relative returns of the JSE versus the global markets. Well, see here for yourself. The following two charts reflect the rand and the US dollar returns of the JSE since the 1st of January 2018, when Ramaphosa was at its peak. And the charts obviously go to substantiate his point that the JSE has not done as well as the large investment houses would have you believe, the large South African investment houses would have you believe. Right, and he goes on to describe how at that time everything was deemed to be fine and dandy in South Africa. Cyril Ramaphosa was going to fix everything. Jacob Zuma was on his way out, and they were going to raise 500 billion rand in investment. And the country head of Goldman Sachs, Colin Coleman, a notorious character, said South Africa was the world's hottest emerging market. Right, so there was not even a suggestion that this positivity was misplaced. After all, who wanted to spoil a good party? Soon thereafter, there were predictions that the JSE would be the best investment market in the world over the next 5 years. Every communique from fund managers from there on out was outrageously bullish about the JSE. So how come 31 months later, the JSE is one of the worst, if not the worst, performing investment markets in the world? You know, I think that this is written by Magnus Haystack, but that's not the way it's presented here at the top. It says staff writer, 18th of August, and then the headline, the actual headline in bold print, is "Beware misinformation around South Africa's pension pot, Magnus Haystack." So it's like a staff writer is making this statement from this person. But let's just persevere a little bit. So how come 31 months later the JSE is one of the worst, if not the worst, performing investment markets in the world? Against the major indices and large markets, it's been a disaster. The JSE over this period of time has made you no money in rands and lost you 25% or so in US dollars. And in relative terms, the loss compared to the NASDAQ has been almost 50% in US dollars. So the actual real value, when measured against, let's say, independent mediums, when measured against the US dollar, which is a little bit of a dodgy thing to do, but perhaps better than measuring in rands, your pension fund investment, if it was to mimic the entire JSE, would have lost 25% in US dollars. A more worrying aspect is that against its peers in emerging markets, the JSE now also, I think there's a misprint here, is now also a backrunner, trailing the pack by far. So what went wrong is the title of the next paragraph. Presumably here we get our answer. The foreign investors did not stay long and soon thereafter started moving their capital back to home countries or to the next hot investment destination. Over the past 5 years, a total of almost 600 billion has left the JSE equity and bond markets. Wow. Local investors too started heading for offshore markets, where the NASDAQ stocks, he lists certain stocks, so we needn't go into that, they're called the FANG stocks, were driving investment markets to new record levels year after year. The South African economy showed no signs of revival. Meanwhile, state-owned enterprise losses kept growing with not one of the 700 odd SOEs making a profit. And he's referring to a 5-year period. We've done other videos on that. Not one of 700. Policy confused the markets. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni would tweet for SAA to be closed down one day, only for Cabinet colleague Pravin Gordhan to say he will never allow it 2 weeks later. Eskom was up to its old tricks of sucking up more money without being able to guarantee a reliable source of energy, even at any price. And out of the woodwork came the ANC's viewpoints on stuff like expropriation without compensation, the nationalization of the South African Reserve Bank, and also prescribed assets. Now, you know that prescribed assets is the term for the policy which the ANC is proposing, the term given to the policy of prescribing to pension funds that they devote a certain proportion of their income, about 20% of what they get in every month then from pension fund contributors, to investment in state programs and projects. Out of the blue, the Treasury announced on 25th July, without any consultation or forewarning, that it intends holding on to the pension funds of people emigrating for 3 years. That announcement has caused an unbelievable panic among people who were planning to emigrate the minute international flights open again. Imagine emigrating with the bulk of your capital tied up in a country where the currency has been dropping at around 9% per annum over the past 10 years. And who says government will honor its obligation to give you back your money after 3 years anyway? Who says it won't become in the end 5 or even 10 years? Anything is now possible, you're telling me. On the same day that the Report newspaper had a front page article on this subject, the Sunday Times ran a story on government's plans to start its own bank. Oh, can you just imagine? And also move on to the assets in pension funds to fund major reconstruction and renewal projects. So, expect a lot of misinformation to be heading the way of investors around South Africa's 8 trillion rand pension pot. By Magnus Haystack, Director of Brenthurst Wealth Management. All right, so it was an error right up at the top where they said that the article was written by a staff writer. There we have confirmation that it is not just about something that Magnus Haystack said, but is indeed written by him. Incidentally, I've read elsewhere that South Africa's pension pot, all told, I'm not an expert in this field. I really am not. I'm unqualified to have an opinion, but I can, like anybody else, regurgitate like a parrot. And I believe that I've read elsewhere that South Africa's pension pot, all things considered, all the different types and arrangements and what have you, is between 11.5 and 13 trillion rand. Be that as it may, be it 8 trillion, 11.5, or 13 trillion, the fact remains that the government is very anxious to get its hands on a whole lot of money at a time when that money, those funds, are, as it is, not performing very well. Meaning that there's a kind of a double jeopardy to pension fund contributors in South Africa at the moment, or a double threat. I'm not a financial guru. I'm not really, as I said, qualified to comment on this stuff. So let's just leave it there. Let it suffice to say what any idiot could say about that. There is apparently dire cause for grave concern. Thank you very much for watching this video. It's appreciated. Please like it if you don't mind. Share it if it's of value to the people around you, your loved ones. And subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. Cheerio. Bye-bye.